Hi, I'm Cameron Tovey, and to celebrate the release of my new album, Ambition, I thought I'd go over the backstory and meaning of each song. Corrosion actually started as 3 separate songs, Poison, Attention Deficit, and something else that never got a name. They were each, in their own ways, about mental health issues and facing the consequences of your actions. Attention Deficit was more so leaning towards the ADHD side of things, surprise based on that. And then Poison had more of a focus on the conflict between ADHD and autism. With Poison, Jack's initial angle was very Poison focused and used a lot of other imagery that wasn't as related to the topic. But when I revisited the song months later, one part of it stuck out to me, and that was the word corrosion. It made me want to really focus on that for some reason, and I wanted to play with that. I wanted to tie the concepts of metal corrosion and rock erosion, both being caused by the waters of mental health. My own toxic ocean, if you will. It all played together perfectly, and Mia was very happy to jump on board to help co-write this new direction. So while the specifics of the song and the origins it came from are very personal to me and specific to me, I wanted to make sure that there's something to relate to for a lot of people out there. The story of Drama Queen actually dates back to 2018, 2019. It's based on an exaggerated version of a friend at the time. She was very much the type of person to blow everything out of proportion. You say one wrong thing and she exploded and blocked you, and she was still a good friend, but she had these moments far too often. But she was like that to the point where she inspired a song that wasn't so explicitly about her and wasn't really her exactly, but a character based on her in a way. A lot more recently, I had been looking through those older songs that I wrote, reading some of them out to Mia, and that one struck us both. Because for the time, for the little amount of experience I had at the time, and considering the other songs that we looked through, that one was of surprising quality, and I really wanted to bring it back, because it's still topical to our lives. It's still there. The theme is still there. The song tells a tragic story of this type of person who wants your attention, but if you give too much, she'll throw a fit, barges in on every occasion, and draws the spotlight to herself. But then things don't go her way, and eventually she crumbles and kind of destroys her own life. And it doesn't really end well for her. I'll put that as lightly as I can. Her curtains were drawn. I think it puts a very thought-provoking spin on an otherwise upbeat, bouncy, danceable song. In a similar way to when people dance to, say, Japanese music that they then find out a while later is full of depressing lyrics. And so I wonder if this will affect people's perception of the song upon a second listen, or if they don't go for a second listen, I wonder if it'll give them an experience that will stick with them. King is very much the embodiment of the whole album in several ways, actually. First of all, it tells the story of a boy, me, who bites off more than he can chew and kind of self-destructs and can't cope with the struggles of trying to be so much. The fact that I'm my own worst enemy, feeding myself a constant loop of negativity that leads to my own downfall because of things that I have convinced myself that I am, or I'm not. I'm always doomed to make mistakes and watch everything crumble before me, and when it gets to a certain point, I just want it to. If it's going that badly, who cares in that moment if it all falls? But then I wouldn't want that to be permanent, then would I? The second way that it embodies the full album is the fact that every song is referenced, either name dropped or thematically referenced or in one song's case, there's just a full line from one of them. Very early on, I decided I wanted to do that because I do think it's really good when an album has like one song that embodies or encapsulates the album. Usually that's like a song that shares the name with the album, but I don't tend to like doing that because when you're discussing the song or the album, then you've got to specify whether you're talking about the song or the album. Like if I said, Set It Off Duality, I could be talking about the song Duality or the album Duality. Things like that. I prefer when one song thematically carries the identity of the album without making discussion confusing for fans. And so that's exactly what I wanted to do. And the third way, it tries to balance the mixture of genres that the album contains. There's orchestral rock, there's some indie vibes, there's a section that carries some of the identity of the rap segments in Corrosion and Loveblind, and then it has the kind of bounce of the more pop-sounding songs like Falling, Starlight, and Idiot. Coffee Stain is a song about keeping the memory alive of someone you've lost, and I started writing it at a time where a couple of us were going through some very hard things. We had to say goodbye to my childhood dog, Scrappy, and there were also large unrelated changes that led us to not being able to see another important person anymore. And I decided to write it when the wounds were still fresh, but instead of before I started healing, because, well, first off, it was just a bit of a comfort to be able to write about these things so recently and freshly. Considering how forgetful I am, I wouldn't want to leave something like that for too long, because I don't want to forget the details that made me feel certain ways that would be important to include in the song. I wouldn't want to go all that time healing, then write the song, then come back to it thinking, that was... how did I forget that? How did I not include that in the song? That was so important to me, because I really can just forget very important details like that. Clicking didn't work. Like that. And at the time, when all this happened, we'd only still pretty recently discovered that we love coffee, and it just sprung into my head the idea of using the imagery of a coffee stain being a permanent piece of imagery that could be seen as something beautiful or a nuisance, but either way it stays. And we both loved that, so we rolled with it. The concept for Cry Wolf had been boiling inside me for about 7 years before I started writing it, but Mia was the one to inspire the name of the song when she described the situation as she'll end up being the girl who cried wolf. Which is a very, very fair thing to say about the situation. It has been plaguing us for years, and we have tried to help this individual for years. Nothing we say ever gets through to this person beyond teaching her new words to describe her situation rather than finding ways to get out of the situation. And it got to the point where we grew apart because it's draining, it's difficult, and countless people have been cut off by this individual over the years for trying to help and trying to be honest friends. It's such a cycle, a vicious cycle, the most repetitive cycle you can imagine. And so we were actually able to translate our thoughts basically almost unworded for the song. It really it was a case of writing itself. Just us kind of ranting to each other about our feelings about the situation, realizing, hey, we don't need to make this kind of more poetic or more artistic. It just was able to spill out onto the metaphorical page, really uncensored, and I'm really glad we didn't have to compromise anything about the story, the situation, without obviously giving personal details, which would be going far too far. It's raw, it's honest, it's upfront, and it works really well. Bloody Freaks started as a battle song for Mia to kick ass in games. I wanted it to be perfect for that use, for that kind of headspace of, I am going to mow down my enemies in this fictional world. I am going to claim their souls. But I also cheekily made it a love song unto me. And it just so happened to end up being one of my favorite songs I've ever made. It's not exclusively a love song or anything, but that's where the emotions came from within me. Because I like being sweet, sappy, sentimental, but I also like edgy things. I like cool things. I like black and red. You know, the edge was important. It was thematic. And I love it. And I got away with it because the edge softens the blow, ironically, of it being a love song. Believe it or not, Starlight. One was called 141+2. The other was an unnamed summer song, somehow. 141+2 was a play on the numbers 143, which stand for I love you. And the summer song never really got much of an identity beyond being a summer song. Only the instrumental was even really worked on. But it's funny because I have versions still saved on my PC of Starlight when it had those steel drums and that kind of bouncy, why it's even a bouncy song, really. It's because it started off very summery, very fun, bouncy. It's still fun and bouncy, but obviously it became themed about space because the person it's written for is a very big enjoyer of space. It's another love song wearing the shirt, jacket and scarf of a space song because she's slowly been teaching me about space over the last couple of years, and I thought I'd put it to use. I have my limits about sappiness, and this song doesn't go over those limits because I made sure that it's fun thematically. Unfamiliar, I feel like is pretty self-explanatory, but it's about the feelings of being lost, disoriented, overwhelmed when you're away from everything you know, and big changes happen in your life. Even if it's not actually a physical change, you're not necessarily in a new location, but if you're feeling different, if you're feeling like the things around you are off today, or you're entering a new chapter of your life emotionally, and maybe your routine is monotonous, or people around you feel like they're changing, but it's supposed to be a reminder that even if things feel like this, reaching out to the right person can make all the difference in the world. I wrote Are You Okay when my best friend was going through one of the hardest times of her life. I have already in the past just narrowly missed the other lowest point that I know of in her life, and I didn't want to make the same mistake again, but I was very busy with things like work and stuff, and so I didn't have the time that I wanted to give to her, at least not as much as we both would have liked and really would have needed. And so I wanted to write her a song for when I'm not around like that, to pick her up and keep her company when I can't be there at those moments. And of course, for anyone to use that song as a support system, if they want to, and if it can help them by all means, that's absolutely brilliant if that can happen. Hell, I'm probably going to use it for myself, and it's my own voice speaking to me like that, singing to me like that. Of course, if you don't know me, it doesn't have that same effect, really, or it might not, but I still think it could very well pick people up, which is exactly its purpose. Loveblind actually takes a similar approach to Corrosion, but it was written first, and it leans more with the theming of rising and falling like a bubble in a lava lamp. How my emotions, personally, are so roller coastery up and down. Yeah, that's that really. I think everything else explains itself pretty well. Hexed was a very fun idea that popped into my head one morning. I've always been a fan of not so much the horror side of things, but like Halloween levels of creepy. I love witches and magic, tomes, owls and that kind of connotation, and magic rings, being under a spell. I love all that stuff, and I love the idea of tying it to love, the way some things have with like love potions, love spells, but without that kind of moral questionability of like being under a love spell unconsensually. I didn't want to go down that path. I wanted it to be more like I want to be under your spell because I'm already in love with you and I don't want to be free from this. And so it's very much the whole thing of like, you're a mystery, you're an enigma. I want to discover everything about you as you metaphorically swallow me whole. Plus I love the sound of certain like Halloween music, like there's a Halloween song in Soul Worker, a video game that we play, and that's so good. It's so good. It's like Halloween rock. There's the strings, there's the guitars. It's brilliant. I love that kind of thing. I love that kind of feeling. It's like that certain kind of creepy, plucky orchestral rock. I don't know. I love it, and I wanted to do something like that, and so I did, and I love it. I'm so proud of it. Hence it getting a music video. I sound like a masochist. Coming off of that one, I am going to be so honest with you. Bad News is basically a Scary Women Are Hot song. That was genuinely the idea going into this song. I wanted a badass warning of how cool women can be. I've been told it's my type. Dramatic, scary. I can't say I disagree. I love that sound-wise it leans so hard into the thunderstorm kind of vibe. And then the lyrics, while they also have that element to them, they also describe other types of just horrible stuff you'd hear in the news, and how it's not that the sound of the song is like all monotonous and only sticks to one thing. It really accents and enhances what's being said and sung, because it's like the backdrop. It's like, oh, a horror movie where there's lightning in the background. That doesn't take away from the story. It gives it some flavor. Falling started as a joke idea, and Mia dared me to pursue it, and so I did. But I got the last laugh because I made it another love song. I'm very well known for falling and hitting my knee. I'm a very clumsy person, but as I have already made you extremely aware in this video, I'm also a very affectionate person. So I turned it into a fun, bouncy love song right under her nose. I think Loveblind is one of the most self-explanatory songs on this album. I wrote it as a thought experiment. If I was not over my ex by now, which I am, and I have been for a very long time, even when I started releasing music, those first couple songs, It Hurts and Lost, do not make me mention those songs ever again. Please. I'm so over them. Anyway, even those were written in a past tense of before I'd gotten over my ex. And that was the year I was broken up with. That I wrote those like 2 months after I was broken up with. But I thought it would be very interesting to go back to that mindset and picture what it would be like if I still wasn't over her, how I would feel, kind of bring that energy back into myself just to channel it into a song. And I wanted to kind of pull from the layers for why we broke up, the lies I didn't know about, the tricks I fell for, how long it took to realize I was getting stabbed in the back, the lengths I would go to stick up for her against people who were trying to warn me from very early on. It contains my favorite line I think I've ever written, or one of them, which is "No more counting scars along my spine." Again, being about the backstabbing. Once it was all over, she gave so many reasons for it being over. She was never sticking to one thing. I'm not that bad of a boyfriend, but she didn't have the decency to be upfront about anything, and it had quite the effect on me for a while. Yeah, this song was a lot less mopey about the same topic that those first songs I ever released were. I wanted to channel the pain, the frustration, the anger, the sadness in a powerful way, rather than I don't know, those first songs just sound so sad and pathetic, and I didn't want to leave that story on a note like that, because I don't deserve to feel like the loser of that relationship. And finally, Idiot is very specifically about the dynamic shared between Mia and I. I'm kind of known as the idiot. I'm not a dumb person. I am intelligent in ways. But when it comes to our dynamic, I'm the one who falls and hurts myself. I'm clumsy, forgetful. I forget how to speak English properly. And it's fun in the context of a joke dynamic and, you know, something I play up for laughs sometimes. Other times it happens, I'm so unbelievably shocked that I just did that thing that we both burst out laughing. And she just... No one's perfect, but she's very clever, you know? It's all in good fun, and so I wanted to capture that in the song, just because I thought, hey, this would be really funny. The song was originally going to be very self-deprecating, but it was Mia's idea to turn it into being about our dynamic because of that, and I hadn't considered that, but it was genius. I was surprised. I knew I wanted to make something on the album kind of 80s feeling, and I thought, hey, why not this one? And I'm very glad I did that, because it paid off really well, and people of varying genre tastes really like it. So it was definitely worth it. So thank you for watching this video, and if you haven't yet listened to the album, interesting that you'd watch this video first, but please do go listen to the album. And if you already have, do it again. Do it again. Why not? What's stopping you? And until I have something else to rant about, bye.